Captain Marcus Reeves stood rigidly on the bridge of the Warship Retribution, his gaze locked on the main screen displaying the chaos unfolding around Earth. Flashes of light from explosions punctuated the darkness of space as human defenses faltered under the relentless assault of the Acrians. "Report, Lieutenant Harris," Marcus barked, his voice cutting through the cacophony of alarms and urgent communications that filled the bridge. Lieutenant Harris, a young officer whose usually composed face now bore traces of strain, turned from his console. "Sir, we've lost contact with the Atlantic and Pacific fleets. Orbital Station Delta has been destroyed. Enemy forces are advancing on all fronts." Marcus clenched his jaw, the gravity of their situation sinking in. Beside him, his second-in-command, Commander Stephen Rourke, studied the tactical display, his brow furrowed in concentration. "We can't hold them off much longer. Our orbital defenses are overwhelmed." "We need to make a decision, Captain," Stephen added, turning to face Marcus. "We can't win this battle, but we can still save lives." Marcus nodded, aware of the weight of his next command. "Prepare for emergency evacuation. Signal all ships to retreat to Rally Point Sigma. We'll regroup at New Horizon." As the crew sprang into action, Marcus turned to Communications Officer Kyle Mendez. "Kyle, send the evacuation order. Priority 1 broadcast. All channels." "Yes, sir," Kyle replied, his fingers flying over the console. Within seconds, the message was out, a desperate call for all surviving human forces to fall back. The bridge crew worked with a silent urgency, coordinating the retreat of the remaining ships. Explosions rocked the Retribution, a grim reminder of the battle still raging outside. Suddenly, an urgent voice crackled over the comm. "Captain Reeves, this is the USS Vanguard. We're pinned down near Mars by enemy cruisers, requesting immediate support." Marcus exchanged a quick glance with Stephen. "Plot a course to Mars, full speed. We're not leaving anyone behind." As the Retribution maneuvered through the debris field that was once Earth's proud fleet, the grim reality of their situation set in. Marcus walked over to the navigation console where pilot Jonas Beck was deftly steering the ship through the chaos. "Keep us steady, Jonas. Get us to the Vanguard as fast as you can," Marcus instructed. "Aye, Captain. It's going to be a rough ride," Jonas replied, his focus unyielding as he dodged incoming debris and blasts. Minutes felt like hours as the Retribution raced toward Mars. The crew was silent, each member aware that the fate of their comrades hung in the balance. Finally, the beleaguered Vanguard came into view, engaged in a fierce battle with 2 Acrian cruisers. "Deploy all fighters. Target those cruisers," Marcus ordered, his voice a calm command amidst the storm. Fighter jets launched from the Retribution, swarming towards the enemy with lethal precision. Explosions lit up the void as Marcus watched the skirmish unfold, a mix of dread and determination in his heart. The battle turned quickly with the Retribution's support. The Acrian cruisers, caught off guard, sustained heavy damage and began to retreat. Cheers broke out across the bridge as the enemy ships warped away, defeated for now. "Vanguard, this is Captain Reeves. Are you able to make the jump to Rally Point Sigma?" The response was weary but relieved. "Yes, Captain. Thanks to you. We owe you one." Marcus allowed himself a moment of relief before turning back to his crew. "All right, everyone. Let's finish this evacuation. We've got a lot of work to do and not much time to do it." As the Retribution led the remnants of humanity's fleet away from the ruins of Earth, Marcus stood solemnly, watching the planet grow smaller on the screen. It was a painful retreat, leaving their home to the enemy. But he knew this was not the end. It was a chance to fight another day, to regroup and reclaim what was lost. The journey to New Horizon was tense and laden with uncertainty. The remnants of humanity's fleet, battered and bruised, drifted through space, holding on to the slim hope of regrouping and planning their retaliation against the Acridians. Aboard the Retribution, Captain Marcus Reeves and his crew worked tirelessly, navigating the dark void with vigilance. As the fleet neared New Horizon, Marcus convened a strategy meeting in the ship's war room. Gathered around the holographic table were his trusted officers, including Commander Stephen Rourke, Lieutenant Harris, and several others who played key roles in the fleet's survival. "New Horizon is not just a refuge," Marcus began, his voice steady despite the weariness that edged his features. "It's our staging ground for the counteroffensive. The Acridians believe they've broken us, but we're going to prove them wrong. Stephen nodded in agreement, his eyes scanning the room. We've got the element of surprise on our side. They think we're scattered and weak. We need to use that misconception to our advantage. Lieutenant Harris, who had been coordinating the fleet's logistics, chimed in. Our resources are limited, Captain, but we've managed to salvage some tech from the debris. Our engineers are working on integrating it into our systems, which could give us an edge. Good, Marcus replied. We'll need every advantage we can get. What's the status of the weapons systems? Harris turned to the weapons officer, Major Tom Bennett, a veteran whose expertise had saved the Retribution more than once. Major, what's your assessment? Tom, a sturdy figure with a calm demeanor, answered, The main cannons are operational, but we're running low on ammunition. I recommend we prioritize the development of alternative weaponry. There's also a prototype energy weapon that was in development on Earth before the fall. If we can complete it, it could change the tide of the war. Marcus's eyes lit up with a strategic fire. Do whatever it takes to get that weapon online. It might be our best shot at taking down their capital ships. As the meeting drew to a close, Marcus emphasized the importance of unity and preparation. This is more than just a fight for survival, he stated firmly. It's our chance to strike back for Earth. Let's make sure we're ready. Later, as the Retribution docked at New Horizon, the crew disembarked, stepping onto the colony that now served as the last bastion of organized human resistance. The colony was a bustling hub of activity, with people working around the clock to fortify defenses and support the incoming fleet. Marcus and his officers were greeted by Dr. Emily Stanton, the chief scientist of New Horizon. Emily, a brilliant mind in military technology, was crucial to their plans. Captain Reeves, we've been expecting you. Follow me, please. There's something you need to see. She led them to a secure laboratory deep within the colony's command center. Inside, a large, partially assembled device stood in the center of the room, covered in a tangle of wires and metal. This is the prototype I believe Major Bennett mentioned, the stellar converter. It's designed to harness and amplify energy at a scale we've never achieved before. But it's not yet operational. We need your engineers to help us finish it. Marcus looked over the device, understanding the significance of what it could mean for their fight. You'll have all the resources we can spare, he promised. As the team dispersed to begin their respective tasks, Marcus took a moment to watch the sun set over the horizon of the colony. The challenges ahead were daunting, but for the first time since the fall of Earth, there was a spark of hope, not just for survival, but for victory. With the Retribution and New Horizon united, the stage was set for humanity to mount a resistance, to fight back against the darkness with all their might, and to reclaim their place in the universe. The silent resistance was silent no more. As the New Horizon colony bustled with preparations for war, Captain Marcus Reeves reviewed the final plans for the Retribution's most crucial mission yet. The atmosphere was charged with a mix of determination and urgency, as the ship was loaded with the newly completed stellar converter, a weapon that could potentially end the war. Marcus convened his senior officers in the Retribution's briefing room. The walls, adorned with maps of Acridian-controlled sectors, set the gravity of their mission. Commander Stephen Rourke, Lieutenant Harris, and Major Tom Bennett were among those present, each ready to play their part. All right, team, Marcus began, his voice firm. Our mission is to infiltrate Acridian territory and deploy the stellar converter in their star system. This is a stealth operation. We get in, deploy the weapon, and get out before they know what hit them. Stephen nodded, eyeing the star maps. It's heavily guarded territory. We'll need to navigate through the Ortega Nebula to mask our approach. It's risky, but it should shield us from their sensors. Harris looked up from his tablet, where he tracked their logistics. Supplies are tight, Captain. We'll need to conserve energy and resources if we're going to make it there and back. Understood, Lieutenant. Major Bennett, what's the status of our armaments? Marcus asked, turning to his weapons officer. Tom, ever the pragmatist, didn't sugarcoat his response. We're as ready as we'll ever be, sir. The stellar converter is operational, but it's a one-shot weapon. We've got standard torpedoes and defensive systems online, but if we get into a firefight, It'll be dicey. Marcus acknowledged this with a nod. Our best weapon is the element of surprise. We can't afford a direct confrontation. With the strategy set, the Retribution slipped silently out of the New Horizon docking bay, beginning its perilous journey through space. The mood among the crew was tense, each member aware of the stakes. As they approached the Ortega Nebula, pilot Jonas Beck skillfully navigated the warship through the colorful mists and turbulent currents of gas. "It's like flying blind in here, Captain. But we'll make it through," he assured Marcus, who stood by his side on the bridge. Marcus's trust in his crew was palpable. "I know you will, Jonas. Keep us steady." Days turned into weeks as the Retribution covertly made its way deeper into enemy territory. The ship's dimly lit corridors echoed with the soft steps of the crew, a constant reminder of the need for silence and stealth. One evening, as Marcus reviewed the mission parameters in his quarters, Stephen came in with a weary but determined look. "Marcus, the crew's holding up, but the tension's building. Everyone knows what's riding on this." Marcus looked up, his face etched with fatigue. "They're the best we have, Stephen. They'll do what's necessary. We all will." As they neared the target, the Acrian border defenses loomed ahead, a formidable barrier between them and their objective. Marcus called for a final briefing, rallying his crew with a poignant address. "We are the tip of the spear," he declared, standing before his assembled team. "What we do today will change the course of this war, for Earth, for humanity, and for the future of our species." With a collective resolve, the crew took their positions as the Retribution stealthily bypassed the Acrian sensors, slipping through the outer defenses. Their target was now in sight, and the mission that they had prepared for so meticulously was about to unfold. As the stars outside streaked by, a palpable silence enveloped the ship, a silence that spoke of the profound hope and fierce courage that defined the human spirit. The journey into darkness was nearing its climax, and the fate of humanity hung in the balance. Captain Marcus Reeves stood stoically at the helm of the Retribution, his gaze fixed on the star map displaying the Regulus 5 system. This critical juncture marked the last navigational checkpoint before entering the core of Acrian territory. The silence on the bridge was palpable, a tension-filled quiet that preceded the storm they were about to sail into. "Report," Marcus commanded, his voice breaking the stillness as he turned to Lieutenant Harris, who was monitoring the long-range sensors. "Sir, we've detected a large fleet formation at Regulus 5, significantly larger than any forward scouting party. It looks like a main battle group," Harris reported, his tone grave. Commander Stephen Rourke leaned over the tactical display, analyzing the enemy positions. "It's an ambush," he concluded sharply. "They're not supposed to know we're coming. Someone may have tipped them off, or they're just being cautious." Marcus considered their options quickly. Retreat was not viable. They needed to push forward to have any chance of deploying the stellar converter and turning the tide of the war. "Prepare for a full assault. We'll have to punch through them. Major Bennett, ready all weapons and prioritize targeting their capital ships." Major Tom Bennett nodded, already relaying orders to the gun crews. "Weapons are hot, Captain. We'll give them everything we've got." As the Retribution approached the Regulus 5 system, the Acrian fleet loomed ahead, a menacing array of warships that blotted out the stars. Marcus's resolve hardened. This was the moment of truth. "Pilot Jonas, take us into a micro-jump right into their flank. Catch them off guard," Marcus instructed, his strategic acumen coming to the forefront in this dire situation. Jonas Beck adjusted the coordinates with precision, and with a brief lurch, the Retribution executed a short-range warp jump, reappearing startlingly close to the Acrian fleet. The suddenness of their arrival caused a moment of confusion among the enemy ships, which the human crew exploited ruthlessly. "We're in their blind spot, Captain," Jonas reported, a hint of triumph in his voice as the ship's cannons began to fire. Explosions lit up the void as the Retribution's guns found their marks. Marcus watched the battle unfold, each explosion a temporary bloom of fiery light against the dark canvas of space. "Focus fire on their command ship. Take it out, and the rest will falter," Marcus ordered, pointing to the largest ship in the Acrian formation. The crew worked with relentless intensity, coordinating their attacks with precision. However, the Acridians quickly regrouped, and a fierce exchange of fire ensued. The Retribution shook violently under a barrage of enemy fire, alarms blaring as they sustained damage. "Shields at 40%, Captain. We can't take much more of this," Harris shouted over the din of battle. Marcus gritted his teeth, weighing his next move. "Reroute all power to forward shields. Prepare for a ramming maneuver." Stephen looked at Marcus, understanding the desperation of the order. "That's a risky play, Marcus. Are you sure?" "It's our only shot at breaking through. Do it," Marcus confirmed resolutely. With a surge of power, the Retribution accelerated directly towards the Acridian command ship. The impact was catastrophic, tearing through the enemy vessel with brutal force. The collision caused massive destruction, but it also left the Retribution severely damaged and vulnerable. As the debris cleared, Marcus surveyed the damage. "Status report. We've got major systems damage, but the engine core is stable. We're still in one piece, but barely," Harris reported, relief mixed with concern in his voice. "Good. Get us out of here, Jonas. Set course for the next waypoint. We'll make repairs en route," Marcus commanded, his voice steady despite the chaos. As the Retribution limped away from the wreckage of the battle at Regulus 5, the crew felt a mix of exhilaration and dread. They had survived the ambush, but their journey into the heart of enemy territory was far from over. The weight of their mission pressed heavily upon them all, but the resolve to fight and win for humanity burned brighter than ever. The Retribution, scarred and battered from the ambush at Regulus 5, limped through space toward the Acridian homeworld. Inside, the mood was one of cautious optimism mixed with the acute awareness of their vulnerability. Captain Marcus Reeves, his uniform marked by the recent skirmishes, stood before the main view screen on the bridge, his eyes never straying from the star charts laid out before him. "Report," Marcus called out, his voice echoing slightly in the tense atmosphere of the bridge. Lieutenant Harris responded from his station. "We're approaching the outer sectors of the Acridian system. Sensors indicate minimal activity. We may have caught them off guard with our last maneuver." Commander Stephen Rourke, looking over the tactical data, added, "Our stealth systems are holding for now, but we can't count on remaining undetected once we start the operation." Marcus nodded gravely. "Understood. Prepare the stellar converter. We might only get one shot at this." The stellar converter, a formidable weapon designed to harness and amplify energy to unprecedented levels, was humanity's last hope. Major Tom Bennett oversaw the final preparations, ensuring that the weapon's intricate systems were perfectly calibrated. "Stellar converter is primed and ready, Captain. We just need to be within range to ensure maximum effect." As the Retribution edged closer to the Acridian planet, the crew prepared for what could be their final battle. Marcus turned to pilot Jonas Beck. "Take us into a geosynchronous orbit above their capital. We need stability to fire the converter." Jonas nodded, his hands steady on the controls, as he expertly maneuvered the ship into position. The planet loomed large on the view screen, a world about to face the full wrath of a desperate yet determined enemy. "Stellar converter is charged. Awaiting your command, sir," reported Major Bennett, his voice steady despite the high stakes. Marcus took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the moment. Every decision could tip the scales between utter annihilation and a chance for victory. He glanced around at his crew, seeing in their faces a mix of fear, resolve, and fierce determination. "This is it. Fire the weapon," Marcus ordered, his voice resolute. The ship hummed with power as the stellar converter activated, drawing energy from the ship's core and focusing it into a single, devastating beam directed at the planet below. The bridge crew watched in awe as a brilliant light shot from the Retribution, piercing the planet's atmosphere and striking the Acridian capital. The effect was immediate and catastrophic. The energy released by the converter ignited a chain reaction, causing explosions that rippled across the surface, devastating the Acridian military installations and sending shockwaves through their global defenses. Cheers broke out on the bridge as the crew witnessed the success of their desperate gambit. However, Marcus remained focused on the screen, aware that the battle was not yet over. "Status report, did we get them all?" he asked, turning to Harris. Harris checked the readings, his eyes widening with cautious relief. Significant damage to the Acrian fleet and infrastructure, Captain. It looks like we've crippled their ability to retaliate. Marcus allowed himself a moment of relief, feeling a heavy burden lift slightly off his shoulders. Keep monitoring their communications. We need to know their next move. As the initial euphoria settled, the reality of their situation sank in. The retribution was still deep in enemy territory, and their escape route was fraught with danger. The Acridians, known for their resilience, would not take this attack lightly. Commander Rourke approached Marcus, his expression serious. We should move out before they regroup. Our objective was achieved, but we're sitting ducks if we stay here. You're right, Stephen. Plot a course back to New Horizon. It's time to go home, Marcus responded, already thinking ahead to their precarious journey back. As the retribution turned to leave the devastated Acridian system, the crew was silent, each member processing the enormity of what they had accomplished. They had struck a decisive blow, but the war was far from over. Their thoughts were with their fallen comrades and the ruins of Earth, as they set their sights on the long journey home, hoping their action had turned the tide in humanity's favor. The retribution made its way back through enemy lines with the crippled Acridian homeworld behind them. Despite their successful strike, the mood aboard the ship was far from celebratory. Captain Marcus Reeves understood that the real challenge had just begun, dealing with the inevitable Acridian retaliation. As they navigated through the debris of destroyed Acridian ships, Lieutenant Harris reported increased communications chatter among the surviving Acridian forces. It seems they're rallying their forces, Captain. Multiple regroup signals are being sent across all their remaining channels. Commander Stephen Rourke analyzed the incoming data with a grim expression. They're not just regrouping, they're mobilizing for a counterstrike. We hit them hard, but we didn't knock them out. Marcus nodded, his jaw set firmly. Prepare for an engagement. We must assume they'll intercept us before we reach the safety of the nebula boundary. Inform all personnel to be at battle stations. The tension aboard the ship escalated as everyone prepared for the expected confrontation. Major Tom Bennett checked the armament systems, despite their depleted reserves. We'll make every shot count, Captain. The crew knows what's at stake. As the retribution neared the nebula, the first signs of the Acridian counterattack appeared on their sensors. A fast-approaching squadron of elite fighters, far more advanced than the standard units they had previously encountered. Marcus watched the approaching blips on the screen with a calculated calm. Pilot Jonas, evasive maneuvers. Let's not make this easy for them. Jonas Beck's hands flew over the controls, weaving the ship through an asteroid field, using the debris as cover against the incoming fighters. The Retribution's turrets fired in controlled bursts, managed by the skilled gunners under Major Bennett's command. Each explosion of an enemy fighter lit up the view screen, a small victory in the face of overwhelming odds. However, the Acridians were relentless. Marcus received a damage report from Harris during a brief lull in the fighting. Shield generators are holding, but we've taken hits to our secondary propulsion systems. It's nothing critical yet, but another wave like that could change our situation dramatically. Understanding the dire implications, Marcus turned to Commander Rourke. Options? We use the nebula's magnetic storms to our advantage, Stephen suggested quickly. It could disrupt their sensors long enough for us to make a stealthy retreat. Do it, Marcus commanded, nodding in agreement. Let's lead them into the storm. As the retribution plunged into the nebula, the magnetic disturbances immediately began to affect both the human and Acridian ships. The pursuing fighters struggled to maintain their sensor lock, and their formation started to break. Using this chaos to their advantage, Jonas skillfully navigated the retribution deeper into the nebula, further confusing the enemy. Marcus watched the tactical display, noting each Acridian ship that faltered. Keep pressing, Jonas. We're not out yet, but you're doing great. After tense minutes that felt like hours, the retribution emerged on the other side of the nebula, the sounds of battle fading behind them. The crew breathed a collective sigh of relief, but Marcus kept his focus forward. Status? We're clear for now, Captain, Harris confirmed, his voice a mix of exhaustion and relief. No pursuit. It looks like they couldn't follow us through the storm. Marcus allowed himself a moment to relax his shoulders, feeling the weight of command as acutely as ever. "Good work, everyone. Let's get back to New Horizon. We need to report and prepare. This war is far from over." As the Retribution set its course back to the colony, the reality of their situation settled in. They had survived, but so had the Acridians. The war would continue, but with the knowledge that humanity was not as easily defeated as the enemy had believed. Marcus knew this was but a brief respite in a much larger struggle, and the journey ahead would require every ounce of their courage and resolve. Captain Marcus Reeves stood on the bridge of the Retribution, observing the star charts with an intense focus. The stakes were higher than ever as they approached Proxima Centauri, where intelligence suggested a massive assembly of Acridian forces was gathering for a final strike. This battle could very well decide the fate of humanity. "Captain, all reports indicate the Acridians are preparing to push through Proxima Centauri to reach New Horizon," Lieutenant Harris updated, his voice tense with the gravity of their situation. Marcus turned to Commander Stephen Rourke, his longtime friend and second-in-command. "Stephen, your thoughts?" Stephen glanced at the tactical overlay. "They're betting everything on this push. If we can stop them here, we might just break their will to continue this war." "And if we fail?" Marcus asked, though the answer hung heavily between them. "We won't," Stephen replied firmly. "We've come too far to fall now." Marcus nodded, reassured by Stephen's conviction. "All right, let's prepare the fleet. This is where we hold them." As the Retribution and the remaining human fleet positioned themselves near Proxima Centauri, Marcus issued his orders with clear, decisive authority. "All ships, this is Captain Reeves. Form up in defensive pattern Sigma. We draw the line here, for Earth, for humanity." The tension was palpable as the Acridian fleet appeared on the horizon, a menacing array of warships that dwarfed the human defenders in number and firepower. Marcus watched them approach, his resolve as unyielding as the steel of his ship. "Pilot Jonas, keep us mobile. Make it hard for them to pin us down," Marcus commanded, watching the enemy movements closely. Jonas nodded, maneuvering the Retribution with expert precision, keeping just ahead of the Acridian barrage. Meanwhile, Major Tom Bennett coordinated the fleet's weapon systems, targeting key enemy vessels. "Their flagship is in range," Tom reported, a strategic gleam in his eye. "Focus all fire on that ship," Marcus ordered. "If we take it down, the rest will falter." As the battle raged, the space around Proxima Centauri was lit with the flashes of exploding ships and the fiery trails of torpedoes. The Retribution shuddered under the strain of continuous fire, but the crew held fast, their actions a testament to their training and their captain's leadership. Suddenly, an opportunity presented itself. The Acridian flagship, damaged from the sustained assault, exposed a critical vulnerability. Marcus seized the moment. "All ships, concentrate fire on my mark." Following his command, a volley of fire from the human fleet converged on the Acridian flagship, causing a spectacular explosion that ripped through the enemy formation. "Enemy flagship has been destroyed," Harris shouted over the din of the battle, his voice filled with disbelief and elation. The destruction of their flagship sent the Acridian fleet into disarray. Sensing the shift, Marcus pressed the advantage. "All units, push forward, drive them back." The human fleet surged, driving the Acridians back through the star system. The battle was brutal and fraught with losses, but under Marcus's command, they slowly gained the upper hand. Hours later, the remnants of the Acridian fleet retreated, leaving behind a debris field that bore witness to the fierce battle. Marcus stood on the bridge, his gaze sweeping over his weary but triumphant crew. "We did it," he said quietly, allowing himself a moment of relief. "We held the line." Stephen clapped Marcus on the shoulder, a smile breaking through the exhaustion. "Not just held it, Marcus, we pushed them back. You did it." The victory at Proxima Centauri was not just a battle won, but a sign of hope for humanity. The Retribution and her crew had proven that they would not go quietly into the night. As they prepared to return to New Horizon, Marcus knew that this victory was just the beginning of the end of the war. They had shown the universe that humanity was a force to be reckoned with, capable of standing against any odds. After the pivotal victory at Proxima Centauri, The journey back to New Horizon was marked by a solemn reflection on the cost of war and the resilience of the human spirit. Captain Marcus Reeves stood at the bridge of the Retribution, his eyes fixed on the stars ahead, each one a reminder of the lives lost and the battles fought. As the ship approached the colony, the damage from the war was evident even from orbit. Scars on the landscape, remnants of defenses, and the hustle of rebuilding efforts. The Retribution docked, and Marcus, along with his crew, was met with the cheers and salutes of the surviving colonists and soldiers, a hero's welcome for the weary travelers. Marcus walked through the crowd, acknowledging their greetings with a nod. He was directed towards an assembly where leaders of the resistance and surviving members of the Planetary Defense Council were gathered. They were waiting to debrief and to discuss the next steps in securing the safety of humanity's last stronghold. "Captain Reeves," said General Ada Clarkson, the senior military official of New Horizon, "your actions have not only saved countless lives but have also turned the tide in this war. We are forever in your debt." Marcus, feeling the weight of his responsibility, responded solemnly, "Thank you, General. It was a collective effort. This crew and many others who are not with us today have all paid dearly. We must ensure their sacrifices were not in vain." The assembly was filled with nods of agreement and murmurs of assent. Plans were quickly put into motion to fortify New Horizon, to use it as a base for launching further operations to reclaim human territories, and to ensure no future threat could ever bring humanity so close to extinction again. Marcus found himself looking out a window at the bustling activity outside, the rebuilding of structures, the training of new troops, and the comforting sight of children playing safely. It was a stark contrast to the war-ravaged vistas he had become accustomed to. A sense of hope, fragile but real, was taking root. Later, as the sun set over New Horizon, Marcus stood alone for a moment, watching the horizon. Commander Stephen Rourke joined him, handing him a drink. "To new beginnings," Stephen toasted. "To those we lost, and to those we're yet to find," Marcus added, his voice tinged with melancholy and hope. They sipped their drinks in silence, each lost in their thoughts. The road ahead was uncertain, but the resolve to make the galaxy a safe place for humanity was stronger than ever. In the days that followed, Marcus worked closely with the colony's leaders to establish a new defense protocol. Technologies salvaged from the war were repurposed to strengthen their capabilities. The stellar converter was dismantled, deemed too dangerous to exist, its core technologies adapted for defensive measures. The final scene found Marcus at the launch of the Phoenix, a newly built ship named symbolically to represent humanity's rise from the ashes of near defeat. As the ship glided smoothly into the black, Marcus gave the order to set course for Earth. It was time to go home, to see what remained, to rebuild, and to remember. As the Phoenix disappeared into the starlit vastness, Marcus's last glance back at New Horizon was a promise to guard this new dawn, to foster the flame of human resilience, and to never let the darkness overwhelm them again.